The moment I heard my daughter-in-law speaking fluent Tagalog in my guest bathroom, a language my son swore she didn't know, I realized the woman who'd been sleeping under my roof for 8 months wasn't who she claimed to be. And when I found my home deed missing from my desk that same night, I knew I wasn't just losing my house. I was fighting for my life. I'm Ramona Hightower, 53 years old, and I learned too late that generosity can be weaponized against you. It started innocently enough, the way most disasters do. My son Derek called me from Seattle last February, his voice tight with the kind of shame only a 30-year-old man who's failed spectacularly can muster. His tech startup had imploded. He and his wife, Celeste, were 3 months behind on rent, facing eviction, drowning in debt from investors who wanted blood. Before we continue, please tell me where in the world you are watching from. Mum, he said, and I could hear him breaking. I know it's a lot to ask, but could we stay with you? Just 6 weeks, maybe 2 months, tops, just until I find something steady? What mother says no to that? My house in Cherry Creek, Denver, paid off after 25 years of double shifts as a surgical nurse at Swedish Medical Center, had 3 empty bedrooms since my divorce 5 years ago. The neighborhood was pristine, tree-lined streets where joggers smiled at you and people actually used their front porches. I'd worked myself to exhaustion for this peace, this security. Of course, baby, I told him. Come home. That was 8 months ago. 8 months of watching my sanctuary transform into someone else's vision. 8 months of biting my tongue while Celeste rearranged my furniture, donated my mother's vintage dishes to Goodwill without asking, and replaced my family photos with abstract art that looked like someone had sneezed paint onto canvas. 8 months of eating DoorDash in my own kitchen because my cooking apparently triggered her IBS while she batch prepped her organic meals in my Le Creuset pots, the ones I'd saved for months to buy. But I told myself to be patient. I told myself this was temporary. I told myself that Derek loved me and would never let this go too far. I was wrong about all of it. Celeste arrived like a storm dressed in Lululemon, petite, pretty, with that effortless style that made my nurse's clogs and scrubs feel frumpy even though I'd been retired for 3 years. She had honey-colored skin, black hair, always pulled into a sleek ponytail, and a smile that never quite reached her eyes. Derek said she was half Vietnamese, half white, raised in Portland by a single mom who'd passed away before they met. She doesn't have any family left, Derek explained that first night, his arm around her shoulders. That's why this means so much to her, Mom, that you're welcoming her. I remember hugging her, feeling how rigid she was in my embrace. Our home is your home, I said, meaning it. She pulled back and studied my face with an intensity that should have warned me. Thank you, Ramona. I won't forget this. The first month was fine, pleasant even. Celeste was quiet, helpful, always offering to run errands or pick up groceries. She worked remotely as a marketing consultant, spent most days in the guest room turned office on video calls, speaking what I assumed was flawless corporate English. Derek found a decent job as a project manager at a tech company in the Denver Tech Center, back on his feet, grateful, hopeful. I should have known it was too smooth. The changes started small, a throw pillow here, a new piece of artwork there. Just brightening things up, Celeste would say with that smile. Then my books disappeared from the living room shelves, replaced with her minimalist decor. My comfortable armchair, the one I'd nursed my son in, the one I'd read 1,000 books in, vanished one day while I was at my book club. It was falling apart, Ramona, Celeste said when I asked. I donated it. You deserve better. but I hadn't wanted better. I'd wanted mine. Derek didn't notice. Or maybe he did, and chose not to say anything. Caught between his mother and his wife, hoping we'd figure it out ourselves. Men always hope that, don't they? By month 4, Celeste was offering financial advice. She'd been a marketing director at a mid-sized firm in Seattle, she said. She understood investments, retirement accounts, estate planning. You're sitting on a gold mine with this house, Ramona. Have you thought about a reverse mortgage, a home equity line? You could be traveling, living your best life. I told her I was happy exactly where I was. Her smile tightened. Of course, just trying to help. That's when the comments about my memory started. Little things at first. Ramona, you told me this story yesterday. Or, we already discussed this, remember? Always with Derek nearby, always with that concerned furrow in her brow. The problem was I didn't remember, or maybe I did. I started second-guessing myself, wondering if retirement had softened my brain, if I was losing track of conversations in a way I hadn't noticed before. Then came the incident with the tea. Celeste started making me this herbal blend every afternoon. It's for relaxation, she said. You seem stressed. It tasted bitter, earthy, but I drank it to be polite. After a week, I noticed I felt foggy in the evenings, my thoughts sluggish, my balance slightly off. I mentioned feeling dizzy once, just offhand, and Celeste's eyes lit up. Maybe you should see a doctor, she said immediately. Those dizzy spells could be serious. I hadn't called them spells. It had been one moment, one time. But suddenly, Derek was worried too. Suddenly, they were both watching me like I might collapse at any second. Suddenly, Celeste was suggesting I make a doctor's appointment, update my healthcare directives, maybe sign a power of attorney just in case. That's when the fear started creeping in. I come from a long line of strong black women who don't break easily. My grandmother raised 6 kids during Jim Crow in rural Georgia. My mother worked 2 jobs to put me through nursing school. They taught me to trust my gut, to recognize danger wearing a smile. And everything in me was screaming that Celeste was dangerous. But I had no proof, just feelings, just instinct. And in a world that constantly tells black women we're paranoid, aggressive, difficult, too much, and not enough, I'd learned to doubt those instincts, to smooth things over, to accommodate. Until the day I heard her speaking Tagalog. It was a Tuesday afternoon, late September. Denver was showing off, golden aspen leaves and crystalline blue skies. I'd been to lunch with Paulette, my best friend since nursing school, venting about the Celeste situation over FO in Capitol Hill. Paulette had listened with that quiet intensity she has, then said something that chilled me. Ramona, this sounds like what happened to my aunt in Tacoma. Woman moved in to help her, slowly isolated her. Then suddenly Auntie Joyce didn't own her house anymore. Financial elder abuse. It's more common than you think. I'd laughed it off. Derek would never let that happen. I was only 53, hardly elderly. I was sharp, educated, aware. But driving home, Paulette's words circled my brain like vultures. I got home around 2. Derek was at work. Celeste's car was in the driveway. She was supposed to be on calls all afternoon. I came in through the garage, arms full of fresh towels I'd bought at Home Goods. The house was quiet, except for a voice coming from upstairs. Celeste's voice, but not speaking English. I crept up the stairs, my heart starting to hammer. She was in the guest bathroom with the door cracked, and the language pouring out of her was rapid, fluid, musical, Tagalog. I recognized it from 20 years working alongside Filipino nurses at Swedish, women who'd taught me a few phrases, who'd shared their lunches and their stories. I pressed against the wall and listened. I couldn't understand most of it, but I caught fragments. Matanda, old woman. Papel, paperwork. Ang tamang oras, the right time. And then, clear as a bell, my own name. Si Ramona. Wala siyang alam. Ramona. She suspects nothing. My hands went numb. The towels slipped from my grip, and I caught them just before they hit the floor, my breath trapped in my throat. I backed away as silently as I could, my mind racing. Derek had told me Celeste spoke English and Spanish. Just those two languages. He'd mentioned it specifically when they first started dating. Some story about how they'd bonded over trying to learn each other's languages. His terrible Spanish, her worse Vietnamese from a grandmother she barely remembered, but she spoke Tagalog fluently, which meant she'd lied, which meant everything else could be a lie, too. I made it downstairs on shaking legs and sat in my kitchen that no longer felt like mine, trying to breathe normally. The afternoon sun slanted through windows that Celeste had convinced me to replace with better energy-efficient ones. $3,000 I'd paid for that upgrade. $3,000 she'd arranged with the contractor. That night, after they'd gone to some restaurant in Lodo for date night, I went through my desk. My checkbook was there, balance lower than it should have been, but not alarmingly so. My passport was in its spot. But when I reached for the brown accordion folder, where I kept my important documents, birth certificate, nursing license, mortgage papers, my hands froze. The deed to my house was gone. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in my bed, the bed I'd owned for 15 years in the house I'd bought with my own money, and stared at the ceiling while my mind spun through every conversation, every interaction, every moment with Celeste that I'd dismissed as harmless. The missing deed wasn't a mistake. It wasn't misplaced. Someone had taken it, and there was only one person who'd been volunteering to organize my paperwork for months. At 3 a.m, I got up and searched every drawer, every file, every box in my office. Nothing. I even checked the recycling bin, praying she'd just thrown it away in some misguided decluttering spree. But I knew better. You don't accidentally throw away a house deed. By sunrise, I'd made a decision. I couldn't confront her directly, not yet. If Celeste was planning something, accusing her without proof would only accelerate whatever scheme she was running. She'd deny everything, paint me as confused or paranoid, and Derek would believe her because he was in love and desperate to believe his life wasn't falling apart again. I needed help. I needed someone who would believe me. At 8 a.m, I called Paulette. "I need you to come over," I said, my voice tight. "Today, when Celeste isn't here." There was a pause. Paulette knew me well enough to hear what I wasn't saying. "What happened?" "I'll tell you when you get here. Just..." "Paulette, I think you were right about everything." She arrived at 2 o'clock, after Derek had left for work, and Celeste had driven off in her white Audi, a car she somehow afforded on a consultant's income, claiming she had a yoga class in Rhino. Paulette stood in my entryway, taking in the changes to my house, with increasingly narrowed eyes. "Where's your grandmother's quilt?" she asked, looking at the blank wall where it used to hang. "Storage," I said bitterly. Celeste said it clashed with the aesthetic. "The aesthetic of your own damn house?" I led her to the kitchen, poured us both coffee, and told her everything. The Tagalog phone call, the missing deed, the comments about my memory, the tea that made me foggy. Paulette listened without interrupting, her expression growing darker with each revelation. When I finished, she was quiet, for a long moment. Then she pulled out her phone. "My daughter Kenya works as a paralegal at a real estate law firm in Colorado Springs," she said. already texting. I'm asking her what someone would need to fraudulently transfer property. Paulette, I don't want to. Ramona. She looked at me with the same fierce protectiveness she'd had when we were young nurses dealing with handsy doctors and impossible shifts. If this woman is doing what I think she's doing, you're in danger. Real danger. We're not playing around with this. Kenya called back within 10 minutes. Paulette put her on speaker. Mom says you think someone might be trying to steal your house. Kenya's voice was professional but concerned. Tell me exactly what's missing. I explained about the deed. Kenya asked questions. Did I have copies? Were there any recent attempts to access my bank accounts? Had anyone asked me to sign documents I didn't understand? Not yet, I said. But Celeste keeps suggesting I update my estate planning. She even found me an attorney in Boulder. Don't sign anything, Kenya said immediately. And Mum, bring her to our office tomorrow. We need to pull her credit report. If someone's attempting identity theft, it'll show up there first. After we hung up, Paulette gripped my hand across the table. You're doing the right thing. Trust your gut, Ramona. It's kept you alive this long. But that night, my gut was screaming louder than ever. Celeste came home from yoga perfectly put together. Not a hair out of place, no sweat, no yoga mat. She smiled at me with those cold eyes and asked how my day was. Quiet, I said, forcing myself to sound normal. Just reading. Good, good. She opened the fridge, began pulling out ingredients for dinner, her dinner, not mine. Oh, Ramona, I've been meaning to ask. That attorney I mentioned, he has an opening this Friday. I made you an appointment, just for a consultation about your estate planning. My blood turned to ice. That's very thoughtful, but I'm not ready yet. She turned, spatula in hand, smile fixed. It's just a consultation. Better to be prepared, right? Especially with the memory issues you've been having. I don't have memory issues. Of course not. Her tone was soothing, patronizing. But you've been repeating yourself lately and Derek's worried. We both are. I wanted to throw my coffee mug at her perfect face. Instead, I smiled back. I'll think about it. That night, I dumped her herbal tea down the sink when she wasn't looking. And the next morning, while Derek was in the shower and Celeste was on a call, I took photos of everything in my house that still belonged to me. My mother's china set, my jewelry box, the family Bible. Evidence that these things existed, that they were mine, in case they started disappearing too. Paulette picked me up at noon. We drove to Colorado Springs in tense silence, my hands shaking the entire way. Kenya met us in a sleek office with a view of Pikes Peak. She was younger than I expected, maybe 30, with Paulette's same sharp intelligence in her eyes. She sat me down with a laptop and walked me through pulling my credit report from all 3 bureaus. Let's see what we're dealing with, she said. The first report loaded. I scanned the accounts listed, my mortgage, my car loan from years ago, paid off. A Macy's card I barely used. Everything normal. Then I saw the others. 3 credit cards I'd never opened. 2 personal loans I'd never applied for. A home equity line of credit for $75,000, approved 6 weeks ago. Oh my God, I whispered. Kenya's face went pale. Mrs. Hightower, when were these opened? I checked the dates with trembling fingers. All within the last 4 months. Total debt in my name, $127,000. I didn't open any of these, I said, my voice cracking. I didn't authorize this. This is identity theft, Kenya said, already taking notes. And it's systematic. Someone's been building a paper trail to make it look like you're financially incompetent or desperate. You need to file a police report immediately. But I can't prove it was her, I said desperately. The applications were online, right? She could claim I did it and forgot that I'm confused. That's exactly what she's setting up, Paulette said grimly. She's been telling Derek you're forgetful, making you seem unreliable. When you voluntarily sign over power of attorney, no one will question it. The room spun. I gripped the edge of Kenya's desk. Mrs. Hightower, look at me. Kenya's voice cut through my panic. We can fight this, but we need evidence. Real, concrete evidence of her committing fraud. Can you get it? I thought about my house, my home, the place I'd earned through decades of backbreaking work. I thought about my son, married to a predator he didn't recognize. I thought about how close I'd come to believing I really was losing my mind. Yes, I said. I'll get it. Kenya pulled out a business card for a private investigator. His name is Jerome. Tell him I sent you. He specializes in financial crimes and elder abuse cases. I'm 53, I said weakly. I'm not elderly. You're old enough for her purposes, Kenya said gently. And Ramona, be careful. If she realizes you know, she might accelerate whatever she's planning. That night, I called Jerome. He had a deep, reassuring voice that reminded me of my late father. I told him everything, the missing deed, the fake accounts, the Tagalog phone calls, the tea. The tea, he repeated. You think she's drugging you? I know it sounds paranoid. It doesn't. It's a classic tactic. Benzodiazepines or antihistamines in small doses, enough to make you foggy and compliant, easy to get, hard to prove. After the fact, he paused. Mrs. Hightower, I'm going to be straight with you. This woman is dangerous. This is textbook elder financial abuse, and these cases can turn violent if the victim gets in the way. My hands went numb again. What do I do? Whispered. You set a trap, Jerome said. You pretend you suspect nothing. Act a little more confused, a little more compliant. Let her think she's winning. Meanwhile, I'll run a background check on her, and you're going to install cameras in your own house. Cameras? Hidden ones. In common areas where she makes phone calls. We need her on video, speaking that language your son doesn't know about, discussing her plans. That's evidence we can use. After we hung up, I sat in my bedroom that didn't feel safe anymore, and cried for the first time since this started. Not from fear, but from rage. Rage at being made to feel crazy. Rage at having to prove my own reality. Rage at this woman who'd infiltrated my family like a virus. But I dried my eyes and made a plan. If Celeste wanted to play games, I'd show her what a surgical nurse learned in 25 years of keeping people alive. Precision, patience, and the ability to cut away disease without flinching. The next morning, I became an actress in my own life. I shuffled into the kitchen slower than usual, let my hand hover over the coffee pot like I'd forgotten what I was doing, then blinked as if coming back to myself. Celeste watched from the breakfast bar, her dark eyes tracking every movement. Ramona? You okay? Her voice was honey-sweet concern. Oh yes, just... What day is it? Thursday. She stood, moved closer. Are you sure you're feeling all right? Maybe we should move up that appointment with the estate attorney. I let confusion cross my face. What appointment? The one we discussed yesterday. For Friday? To help you with your paperwork. I touched my temple, frowned. Yes, I think I remember. Friday. Her smile was radiant, victorious. Perfect. I'll confirm with his office. Derek had already left for work. He'd been leaving earlier and earlier, I realized. Maybe sensing the tension, but unwilling to confront it. After Celeste retreated to her office for morning calls, I slipped out to my car and drove to a security store in Aurora that Jerome had recommended. The clerk was a young woman with purple hair and kind eyes. Looking for something specific? Hidden cameras, I said quietly, for my own home. She didn't ask questions. 20 minutes later, I walked out with 3 tiny wireless cameras disguised as everyday objects, a clock, a phone charger, and a decorative birdhouse that Derek had made me in middle school woodshop. The irony of using my son's childhood gift to expose his wife's crimes wasn't lost on me. I installed them that afternoon, while Celeste was supposedly at a client meeting in Boulder. The clock went on the living room mantel. The phone charger plugged into an outlet in the kitchen where Celeste often took calls. And the birdhouse. That went on the hallway table near the guest bathroom, where I'd first heard her speaking Tagalog. Jerome called as I was finishing. Background check came back on Celeste Nguyen. And clean, too clean. No criminal record, no debt, solid employment history, good credit. Either she's exactly who she says she is, or she's very, very good at building false identities. My stomach sank. So we have nothing? I didn't say that. I'm running deeper checks, social media history, previous addresses, college records, the kind of search that takes time. Meanwhile, those cameras are your best bet. Keep playing confused. Let her talk. That night, I refused the tea. I'm just not in the mood, I said, waving it away. But thank you, sweetheart. Celeste's jaw tightened, almost imperceptibly. It's really good for you, Ramona. Helps with sleep. I'm sleeping fine. I met her eyes, let confusion flicker across my face. Wait, have I been having trouble sleeping? I can't remember. You mentioned it last week, she said smoothly. Said you were waking up disoriented. I'd said no such thing, but I nodded slowly, uncertainly. If you say so. She brought me the tea anyway. I took it to my bedroom, dumped it in the bathroom sink, rinsed the cup, and brought it back empty. That was lovely, thank you. Within an hour, my head felt clearer than it had in weeks. The fog I'd attributed to stress or age lifted, and I realized with sickening certainty that Jerome had been right. She'd been drugging me. For how long? How many decisions had I made while mentally compromised? How much had I agreed to while my brain was wrapped in pharmaceutical cotton? I pulled up the camera feeds on my phone, the app the security store clerk had installed. 3 angles of my home, recording everything. Now, I just had to wait. I didn't have to wait long. The next morning, Friday, Derek left for work at 7:30. At 8, Celeste made a phone call from the living room. I was in my bedroom, with the door cracked, watching the feed on my phone, earbuds in. She spoke in rapid Tagalog. The words were meaningless to me, but her tone was sharp, businesslike. She paced as she talked, gesturing with her free hand. Then she said something that made my blood freeze. My name, followed by what sounded like numbers, possibly an address? The call lasted 6 minutes. When she hung up, she smiled to herself and went upstairs. I forwarded the video to Jerome immediately. Got her on camera speaking Tagalog. Can you get it translated? On it. Meanwhile, that attorney appointment today, are you going? I'd almost forgotten. She wants me to sign estate planning documents. Don't sign anything, but go to the appointment. See what she's trying to get you to agree to. I'll have someone follow you, document everything. At 11, Celeste drove me to Boulder in her Audi. The attorney's office was in a bland professional building off Highway 36. The attorney himself, Richard Breslin, was maybe 60, with calculating eyes and a handshake that lasted too long. Mrs. Hightower, so good to meet you. Celeste has told me you're looking to simplify your estate planning. Has she? I let my voice waver slightly. I'm not sure I remember. It's fine, Ramona, Celeste interrupted, her hand on my arm. Possessive? Controlling? We discussed this. Remember, with your memory issues, we want to make sure everything's in order. Breslin nodded sympathetically. Of course, of course. Now, I've drawn up some documents based on what Celeste shared about your situation. A durable power of attorney, a living will, and a trust transfer for your primary residence. My heart stopped. A trust transfer? To protect your assets, he said smoothly. Very common for people in your situation. The trust would be managed by Celeste and your son, ensuring your home is protected if you become incapacitated. Translation: signing over my house while pretending it was still mine. I'd like to read everything first, I said, reaching for the documents. Celeste's hand tightened on my arm. Of course, but Mr. Breslin's time is limited. Maybe we could just go over the highlights. No, I said firmly, surprising myself. I want to read every word. Something flickered in Celeste's eyes. Anger, quickly masked. Ramona, don't you trust me? Of course I do, sweetheart, but these are important documents. My mother always taught me to read before I sign. I looked at Breslin. You understand, don't you? He couldn't say no without revealing himself. Naturally, take your time. I read every page. The power of attorney gave Celeste control over my finances, medical decisions, and property. The trust transfer essentially signed my house to a trust she and Derek would manage. But the fine print showed Derek's name was barely mentioned. Celeste would have primary authority. If I signed these documents, I would own nothing. I would be nothing. These are very comprehensive, I said carefully, but I'd like my own attorney to review them first. Celeste's mask slipped. For just a second, I saw rage in her eyes, pure, cold rage. Your own attorney? Ramona, Mr. Breslin is one of the best in Colorado, and I'm sure he won't mind another set of eyes, I said, standing. My legs were shaking, but my voice was steady. Mr. Breslin, I'll be in touch. In the car, Celeste drove in furious silence. I could feel her anger radiating off her like heat. When we pulled into my driveway, she finally spoke. You're making a mistake, Ramona. These documents are for your protection. I'm sure they are, I said mildly, but I'm not ready yet. She grabbed my wrist. Her grip was strong, surprisingly painful. Ready for what? To lose everything? To end up alone and confused in some state facility because you were too proud to let your family help you? I pulled my arm away. Let me go. She did, but her eyes had gone flat. Dead. You're not as sharp as you think you are, old woman. Everyone can see you're slipping. Then she smiled, and it was the most frightening thing I'd ever seen. Derek sees it too. He's just too kind to say anything. She got out of the car and walked into my house like she owned it, because she thought she did. Breslin's smile faltered. Questions, of course, but these are standard documents. This trust, I said, pointing to the property transfer. It lists Celeste as the primary trustee, but Derek is my son. Shouldn't he be listed first? Celeste leaned forward. It's just alphabetical, Ramona. We discussed this. We didn't discuss anything. I kept my voice mild, confused. And this power of attorney. It says Celeste can make medical decisions for me, but we're not blood relatives. Is that normal? Perfectly normal, Breslin said quickly. She's your daughter-in-law, family by marriage. But what if Derek and Celeste divorce? I looked at Celeste directly. I'd hate for there to be complications. Her jaw tightened. We're not getting divorced. Of course not. But legally speaking, shouldn't there be provisions? I turned to Breslin. As an attorney, you must see divorces all the time. Wouldn't it be prudent to have safeguards? Paulette jumped in. Bless her. I've seen this in estate planning for my patients. Usually, there's a clause about blood relatives maintaining primary authority, just to avoid conflicts of interest. Breslin's face was reddening. Mrs. Hightower, if you're having second thoughts. I'm not having second thoughts. I just want to understand what I'm signing. I picked up another page. And this section about financial management, it says, Celeste can open accounts, transfer assets, make investments in my name. That's a lot of power. That's the whole point, Celeste snapped. Then, catching herself, softened her voice. Ramona, honey, we're trying to protect you with your memory issues. What memory issues specifically? Paulette asked, her nurse voice cool and professional. Has Ramona been diagnosed with cognitive decline? Do you have medical documentation? Celeste's eyes flashed. She repeats herself, forgets conversations, gets confused about dates. I'm sitting right here, I said quietly, and I'd like to know when I was diagnosed with dementia, since no one's told me. You haven't been diagnosed yet, Celeste said through gritted teeth. That's why we need these protections in place before what? I set down the papers. Before I get sick? Or before I realize what you're doing? The room went silent. Breslin stood abruptly. Mrs. Hightower, I think we should reschedule when you're in a more cooperative frame of mind. I'm in a perfectly clear frame of mind, I said. Clear enough to know that signing these documents would give Celeste complete control of my assets. Clear enough to wonder why she needs that control. Clear enough to ask why my house deed went missing from my desk 3 weeks ago. Celeste's face went white, then red. What are you accusing me of? I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm just asking questions. I stood. Questions like, why you speak fluent Tagalog when you told my son you only speak English and Spanish. Questions like, why there are credit cards opened in my name that I never applied for. Questions like who Barbara Whitmore was and why she died 3 weeks after you helped her with her estate planning. Celeste shot to her feet. You've been spying on me. I've been protecting myself. My voice was steel now, all pretense of confusion gone. From someone who moved into my home under false pretenses, who's been drugging me with that herbal tea, who's been systematically stealing my identity and my assets. Breslin was edging toward the door. Celeste grabbed his arm. Tell her she's being paranoid. Tell her. I think you should leave, Breslin said to me, his face pale. Both of you. Oh, we're leaving, Paulette said, standing beside me. But not before Ramona takes photos of these fraudulent documents you tried to get her to sign. I pulled out my phone and started photographing every page, while Celeste and Breslin stood frozen. When I finished, I looked at Celeste directly. I know who you really are, Carmina Reyes. I know about Seattle. I know about Barbara Whitmore. And I know you targeted my son to get to me. Her mask shattered completely. The sweet, concerned daughter-in-law vanished, replaced by something cold and calculating. You can't prove anything. Actually, I can. I have you on video speaking Tagalog about forging my signature. I have the credit reports showing identity theft. I have recordings of you discussing your plans with your partner, who you still haven't told me about, by the way. For just a second, fear flickered across her face. Then she smiled, and it was terrifying. Derek will never believe you. He loves me. And you? She laughed. You're a paranoid old woman having a breakdown. Everyone will believe that. I've made sure of it. We'll see. I headed for the door, Paulette right behind me. Enjoy the rest of your day, Carmina. It's one of your last as a free woman. We walked out. Behind us, I heard Celeste screaming at Breslin, her careful control completely gone. In the parking lot, Paulette was shaking. Oh my God, Ramona. It's okay. We got what we needed. My phone buzzed. Jerome. Recorded everything through the windows. She admitted to drugging you and using a false identity. Call the police. Now. I dialed Detective Martinez at the Denver Police Department. Kenya had connected me with him yesterday, briefed him on the case. Detective, this is Ramona Hightower. I'd like to report identity theft, fraud, and attempted elder abuse, and I have evidence. Come to the station, he said immediately. I'll meet you there. But as we pulled out of the parking lot, I saw Celeste burst through the office doors, phone to her ear, running to her car. Our eyes met for just a second. She knew she was caught. And cornered animals were the most dangerous. Drive faster, I told Paulette. We made it to the police station in 20 minutes. Detective Martinez met us in the lobby, a solid man in his 40s with kind eyes that had seen too much. Kenya and her boss, Greta, were already there, along with Jerome, a tall black man with grey at his temples and the calm demeanor of someone who'd done this 100 times. For the next 2 hours, I laid out everything. The credit reports, the videos, the translated phone calls, the tea samples, the fraudulent documents. Jerome provided his investigation files on Barbara Whitmore's death. Greta explained the legal implications. Martinez listened to everything, taking notes, his expression growing darker. This is one of the most organized elder fraud cases I've seen, he said, finally. And you're right, Carmina Reyes is wanted in King County, Washington, for questioning in Barbara Whitmore's death. They couldn't prove murder, but the timing was suspicious. She vanished before they could bring her in. She's been living in my house for 8 months, I said, my voice breaking. Sleeping down the hall from me. I made her breakfast. I welcomed her into my family. She's a professional predator, Martinez said gently. This isn't your fault. But Mrs. Hightower, we need to move fast. If she realizes we're onto her, she might run. Or worse. Worse? Barbara Whitmore died of what appeared to be a medication overdose, ruled accidental. But if your daughter-in-law has been drugging you... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. My phone rang. Derek. Mom, where are you? Celeste came home hysterical, saying you attacked her at the attorney's office, that you're having some kind of episode. Derek, listen to me very carefully. I'm at the police station. The police? Mom, what's going on? Your wife is not who she says she is. Her real name is Carmina Reyes, and she's been defrauding me for months. The police are preparing to arrest her. Silence, then. That's insane. Mom, you need help. Derek Michael Hightower. My voice cracked like a whip. I am your mother. I am not having an episode. I am not confused. Your wife is a criminal, and she's been using you to get to me. Now you can either believe me or not, but in about an hour, the police are going to show up at my house with a warrant for her arrest. Where are you right now? I'm at home, with Celeste. She's packing. Ice flooded my veins. Packing? She says we need to leave, that you've gone crazy, that we're not safe. Derek, she's running. Don't let her leave. If you ever trusted me in your entire life, trust me now. Keep her there. I can't just... Detective Martinez wants to talk to you. I handed the phone over. Martinez identified himself, spoke in low, authoritative tones. I watched his face grow concerned. Then he motioned to the other officers in the room. She's fleeing, he said, hanging up. Son confirmed she's loading suitcases into her car. We need to move now. Everything became chaos. Officers mobilizing, patrol cars dispatching, Martinez pulling on his jacket and motioning for me to come with him. You're a witness, he said. And it's your house. We might need you. Paulette grabbed my hand. I'm coming too. The drive back to Cherry Creek took 15 minutes that felt like hours. 3 patrol cars, sirens off, converging on my house. My house that I'd lived in for 15 years, that I'd raised my son in, that had been violated by a woman I'd welcomed with open arms. We pulled up to find Celeste's Audi in the driveway, trunk open, suitcases visible. Derek stood on the front porch, his face ashen, looking lost. Martinez approached carefully, hand near his weapon. Carmina Reyes, I have a warrant for your arrest. Celeste appeared in the doorway. She'd changed clothes, jeans, a hoodie, sneakers, ready to run. When she saw the police cars, Her face went blank. "This is a mistake," she said calmly. "I'm Celeste Nguyen. I don't know who Carmina Reyes is." "Ma'am, we have fingerprint matches from Barbara Whitmore's estate case in Seattle. We have video of you admitting to identity theft. We have recorded phone calls in Tagalog discussing fraud. You need to come with us." She looked at Derek. "Baby, you know me. Tell them this is crazy." Derek looked at his wife, then at me, then back at her. "Did you drug my mother?" "What? No, Did you steal her house deed?" "Derek, you don't understand. Did you love me?" His voice broke. "Did any of it mean anything, or was I just a way to get to her?" Celeste's mask slipped one final time, and when she answered, her voice was ice. "You were always just a means to an end. You, with your pathetic failed startup and your desperate need to be saved. You were so easy." Derek's face crumpled. She ran, bolted past Derek, down the porch steps, heading for the side yard. But Martinez had anticipated it. 2 officers cut her off. She fought, screaming in Tagalog, thrashing like a wild animal. They cuffed her, read her rights, loaded her into a patrol car while she screamed that we'd regret this, that her lawyer would destroy us, that we couldn't prove anything. Derek sank down on the porch steps, his head in his hands. I went to him, sat beside my son while he shattered. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I'm so sorry." "You tried to tell me," he choked out, "all those little comments about her, about things feeling off, and I chose her over you." "You loved her, or who you thought she was." "There's no she. There was never a she. It was all fake. Our whole relationship, our marriage, not all of it." I put my arm around him. "Your feelings were real. Your love was real. She's the fake one, not you." We sat there while the police searched my house, gathering evidence. They found my house deed in Celeste's, Carmina's, suitcase, along with forged documents, blank signature stamps, and a burner phone with messages that would later prove she had a partner still at large. They found the tea canister, tested it on site. Diazepam, a benzodiazepine sedative, enough to keep someone foggy and compliant without knocking them out completely. Martinez came over with a grim expression. "Mrs. Hightower, the amount she was giving you daily, if you'd continued taking it, combined with what she was planning, with those forged documents, I don't think we would have found you alive by the end of the month." The words hung in the air like smoke. By the end of the month. Less than 3 weeks away. Derek made a sound like a wounded animal. "She was going to kill you." "We don't have proof of intent to murder," Martinez said carefully. "But the pattern matches Barbara Whitmore's case. Heavy sedation, followed by a tragic accident or medication interaction. Once the victim signs over their assets, they become a liability." I felt oddly calm. Maybe it was shock, maybe it was relief that I'd been right, that I wasn't crazy, that my instincts had saved my life. "What happens now?" "She'll be arraigned tomorrow on charges of identity theft, fraud, and elder abuse. King County wants her extradited for questioning in the Whitmore case, and will keep investigating her partner. Someone's been helping her, probably running similar schemes in other cities." "What about Derek?" I looked at my son, who seemed to have aged 10 years in the last hour. "They were married. Is he liable for her crimes?" "Not if he didn't know about them. And based on what I've seen, she manipulated him as much as she did you." Martinez's expression softened. "Son, you're a victim here too. I'd recommend speaking with a therapist who specializes in trauma from intimate partner manipulation. This kind of psychological abuse leaves scars." Derek nodded numbly. After the police left, after the evidence was collected, after the neighbors had stopped gawking from their porches, Derek and I sat in the kitchen that finally felt like mine again. "I should move out," he said hollowly. Find my own place. I've caused you enough trouble. Derek Michael Hightower, you look at me. He raised his red-rimmed eyes. You are my son. You were deceived by a professional con artist. This is not your fault. And you're not going anywhere until you're ready. This is your home. I brought her here. I married her without really knowing her. I chose her over you when you tried to warn me. Because she was good at her job. That's what predators do. They find good people and exploit their goodness. I took his hands. You wanted to believe in love. You wanted to believe someone could choose you after your startup failed, after you lost everything. That's not weakness, baby. That's hope. And she weaponized it. He broke down then, truly broke down, sobbing like he hadn't since he was a child. I held him while he cried for the wife who never existed, for the future he'd imagined, for the trust that had been shattered. Paulette stayed with us that first night, sleeping in the guest room that Celeste had occupied. We ordered pizza, real, greasy, delicious pizza that I ate in my own kitchen without guilt. Derek barely touched his food, but he sat with us, letting himself be surrounded by people who actually loved him. I keep thinking about all the signs I missed, he said quietly. The way she never wanted to video chat with my friends from Seattle. How she had no photos from her childhood. The fact that her mom supposedly died, but there was never a funeral, never any paperwork. She told me her mom had early onset dementia, I said. Used it to justify her concerns about my memory issues. Classic projection. How many other people has she done this to? Derek stared at his untouched pizza. How many other guys like me did she target? How many families did she destroy? None of us had an answer. The next morning, Jerome called. Carmina Reyes was arraigned an hour ago. Bail set at $500,000. No way she's making that. King County is filing extradition papers. And Ramona? They found her partner. My heart jumped. Who? The notary in Aurora, guy named Felix Domingo. He's been running the document forgery side of the operation. They've identified at least 6 other victims across Washington and Colorado over the last 3 years. Total theft, over $2 million. My God. 3 of those victims died within 6 months of signing over their assets. All ruled natural causes or accidents, but the pattern is clear. You were number 7, and you're the first one who fought back. After I hung up, I told Derek everything Jerome had said. He went even paler. 3 people died. She killed 3 people, and I slept next to her every night. You didn't know. I should have known. I should have seen. Derek. I made him look at me. Carmina Reyes is a sociopath. She doesn't feel empathy or guilt. She mimics human emotions to manipulate people. Even trained psychologists can be fooled by people like her. You're a project manager who fell in love. Stop blaming yourself for not being a detective. Over the next few days, the story exploded. Local news picked it up. Denver woman outsmarts deadly con artist. Then national outlets. Black nurse exposes multi-state elder fraud ring. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters wanting interviews, victims' families reaching out, even a producer from a true crime podcast. I declined most of them. This wasn't about fame. It was about survival. But I did agree to one interview with a local reporter named Jasmine Chen who'd lost her own grandmother to a similar scam 5 years ago. She understood the shame, the self-blame, the way society dismisses elder abuse until it's too late. You trusted your instincts, Jasmine said during the interview. Even when everyone around you was saying you were paranoid or confused, you knew something was wrong. What made you keep fighting? I thought about my grandmother, about my mother, about all the black women in my family who'd survived things that should have destroyed them. I come from women who don't break, I said simply. And I wasn't about to let some con artist be the thing that finally broke me. The interview aired 2 days later. My phone exploded again, but this time with messages of support. Women, mostly women of color, sharing their own stories of being gaslit, dismissed, told they were overreacting when they knew something was wrong. You gave me courage to report my daughter-in-law, one woman wrote. I thought I was going crazy too. My son's girlfriend was doing the same thing to my mum, another message read. I showed him your interview. He finally believes us. I realized then that this was bigger than just me and Carmina. This was about a culture that dismisses women's intuition, especially older women's intuition, especially black women's intuition, about how predators exploit that dismissal. Derek started therapy 3 times a week. He'd filed for an emergency annulment based on fraud. Turned out Carmina had lied about everything, including her legal name, on the marriage certificate. The marriage was void, like it had never existed. Except it had existed for him. The love, the hope, the future he'd imagined. Those had been real, even if she wasn't. My therapist says I'm grieving someone who never existed, he told me one evening. We were sitting on the porch, watching the Denver sunset paint the sky orange and pink, like mourning a ghost. That's exactly what it is, I said. And it's okay to grieve her, even knowing what she did. You're not grieving the criminal. You're grieving the person you thought she was. Will I ever trust anyone again? Yes, because the alternative is letting her win. Letting her steal not just your money or your home, but your ability to love. And Derek, you're too good to let her take that. He leaned his head on my shoulder, like he used to when he was small. I'm sorry, Mom, for everything. I know, baby, I know. 2 weeks after Carmina's arrest, Martinez called with an update. King County has enough evidence to charge her with second-degree murder in Barbara Whitmore's death. They found traces of diazepam in Whitmore's system during the original autopsy, but it was attributed to her prescription anxiety medication. Now they're re-examining it as poisoning. And the other victims? 2 more families have come forward with evidence. The DA thinks they can prove a pattern of predatory behavior spanning at least 5 years, possibly longer. Carmina's looking at 30 years minimum. Probably more. 30 years. She was 32 now. She'd be an old woman herself by the time she got out, if she got out. The irony wasn't lost on me. A month after the arrest, Paulette and I met Kenya and Greta for lunch at a soul food restaurant in 5 Points. They'd worked overtime, helping build the case against Carmina and Felix, and I wanted to thank them properly. We should be thanking you, Kenya said, raising her glass of sweet tea. You gave us one of the strongest elder abuse cases in Colorado history. The financial abuse statutes are being updated because of what you documented. I just took pictures and asked questions. You trusted yourself, Greta corrected. In a system designed to make women, especially black women, doubt themselves. That's revolutionary. I thought about all the times I'd second-guessed my own memory, my own perceptions, about how close I'd come to signing those documents, to believing I really was losing my mind. I almost didn't, I admitted. If Paulette hadn't mentioned her aunt, if I hadn't heard that phone call, I might have just accepted it. Accepted that I was confused, declining, too old to manage my own life at 53. But you didn't, Paulette said firmly. And now 6 other families have their closure. 3 other families know what really happened to their loved ones. You did that. After lunch, I drove through Cherry Creek, looking at my neighborhood with new eyes. How many other homes held secrets like mine had? How many other women were being slowly poisoned, systematically isolated, legally robbed? How many would trust their instincts in time? That night, Derek came home from therapy looking lighter than he had in weeks. My therapist suggested something, he said. A way to reclaim what happened, turn it into something positive. I'm listening. There's a non-profit in Boulder that helps elder abuse victims navigate the legal system. They need volunteers, people who understand what it's like, who can advocate for victims who don't have a Paulette or a Jerome. He paused. I thought maybe we could volunteer together, help other families spot the warning signs before it's too late. I looked at my son, who'd been broken by a predator and was choosing to rebuild himself by helping others. Pride swelled in my chest. I think that's a beautiful idea,